Mariana Kun, and we are going to be having conversations, follow up on the End SARS campaign in Nigeria. For those who do not know what SARS is, it's not the disease, it's a special anti robbery squad that is part of the Nigeria police force. The police rebranded over the years and they decided to take out the force. And there was also a slogan which says, "The police is your friend." But I do not know how many Nigerians can actually say that the police is their friend. For those who do not know, let me just give you a quick background into what the Special Anti-Robbery Squad or how they came into being. It is actually a unit under the Force Criminal Investigation Intelligence Department of the police in Nigeria that was headed at the time by a Deputy Inspector General of Police. It was established to detain and prosecute those involved in violent crimes such as kidnapping, armed robbery, among others. Now, the unit was founded in 1992 by a former Commissioner of Police, Simeon Danladi, to address the surging wave of crime in Lagos State. Now, for a long time, this particular robbery squad was only existing in Lagos. Then over time, they decided to duplicate it across the country. Now, most of these men who were working in the squad were I think there were just 15 of them. But as time went on, they decided to recruit more and more people into the squad. Years down the line, people started complaining about being brutalized, abused. Some of them were fleeced of monies by these men of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. There were stop and searches. Young people were profiled. If you had a laptop, a smartphone that looked or seemed a bit too expensive, you were profiled. And half the time, you were threatened. Most people had to part with money in order to be on the safe side. But I'm being joined this evening by my colleagues. Interestingly, all of my colleagues from a station I used to work with, a talk radio station here in Nigeria, Nigeria's best talk radio station. I'm being joined all the way from Australia by my very good friend and co-anchor at the time, Daniel Braid. He used to be a broadcast journalist, but he's now in public relations. Daniel, it's good to have you join us. I know it's 5 a.m. or past 5 a.m. in Australia, but it's so great to have you join us.
Thanks for having me today, Marianne.
All right, so also joining us from River State, Port Harcourt, is Gabriela Ayao. She is a broadcast journalist working as an on-air personality with Nigeria Info FM. It's good to have you join us, Gabriela.
Good to be here as well, Marianne. Thank you so much for having
me. Great. So I want to say thank you to everybody who's joined us. Femi, we're waiting for you to join us. Just go to your profile and click on the video. The video icon, it will take you straight into the studio. We're waiting on you. Hello, Mark Goldman. Thank you for joining us from Los Angeles. Let me go straight into the conversation. Now, I'll start with you, Daniel. Daniel, I know you've not been in Nigeria for a bit, but you still follow all the things that are happening in the news coming up from Nigeria. Police brutality has been a thing even before the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, started abusing or brutalizing people and, shooting people dead. In fact, since 2009, Amnesty International had reported on extrajudicial killings by men of the Nigeria police and demanded for justice. Since then, we hear is rebuttals. The police giving us statements or countering what Amnesty International or other NGOs have reported on. My question is, if since 2009 till 2020, several years down the line, these reports have been coming back to back, there has to be some iota of truth in it. Why has it taken so long for the Nigerian government to address the issue of police brutality?
Well, Marianne, there's so many reasons and so many issues to talk about when you talk about police brutality, SARS especially, or governments of the day not saying much about it. Nigeria is a very complex society. It's a society that's based a lot on hierarchy, and the hierarchy in this case is those in authority are up while everybody else is beneath them. So it's very hard to complain against somebody who is higher than you in terms of the hierarchy. It's very difficult. Our society doesn't allow for such things to happen. That is why such things keep happening. A classic example, Marianne, is the fact that if you and I have an issue, you could actually go to the police to enforce me or force me to do your bidding because you have the upper hand. A society that allows police to intervene in civilian affairs to a certain extent that they could brutalize me because you give them the go ahead to do that is not a sane society. Sadly, that's where we find ourselves. Um, I'll give an example, Marianne. The police is meant to be a customer service based kind of unit, in as much as they have enforcement powers as well. But how many Nigerians can go to the police and say, look, I have an issue, and you go there with the mind that customer service will be given to you. You'll be treated like a customer, and you'll be given your fair hearing and be given the right to actually air your grievance. It's not done. In fact, if you go there, what could happen is you yourself might get thrown behind the counter for going to complain about a matter. you know. So the system itself is set up for you to fail from the get-go. As an ordinary Nigerian, Marianne, you have no recourse to the law. It doesn't favor you in any way. You're set up to fail from the get-go. So we're just left with, look, there's nothing we can do. So when things do happen, when people are brutalized by the police, it's just every other day in Nigeria. It just happens. It's just a normal part of our everyday existence, which is sad, but that's the way it is. From independence till now, Marianne, it's the same thing. In the 70s, the same thing. 80s, 90s, in the noughties, it's the same thing. The police are at the upper hand of the hierarchy while everybody else is beneath them. And the more police officers you have at your beck and call, the better for you. If you have one mopo in your house who acts as a bodyguard slash messenger slash madam's protector, you're better than the rest of us, because you have somebody to protect you. So as long as you have that hierarchy in place and the police are still on top and everybody else is beneath that, Marianne, this things will continue. The police is not meant to be there to intimidate you or to harass you or to make you feel like you're nothing. But sadly, that's what you get because they feel that they're untouchable and they're on the top of the totem pole. So wherever you are, if you're not a police officer, or if you don't know anybody in the police, or if you don't have an uncle in the police or a father in the police, Marianne, you are beneath them, and therefore your rights or whatever you claim your rights are will be trampled upon.
Absolutely. This happened when I just got into town. I was a couple of months old in River State, and we were looking to relocate here. And my husband had just joined me. He had come in on a Saturday, on a Friday, and then on a Saturday, in taking me, dropping me off at work and heading back home, I just had this very weird feeling that all was not well. So as soon as I got upstairs to the studio, I had to give him a call and say, "Are you okay?" And boom, he was at the station. Where are you? Where is he located? He had no idea where he was because apparently it was his very first day in River State. So I had to leave the office with a colleague from the newsroom, had to start going from one station to the other looking for him. Eventually found him in one of the stations somewhere in town, close to our office. And like you said, the only saving grace was the fact that I had my press card and I was a journalist. And for that reason, he was let go. But interestingly, when I got there, I found my husband on the floor, on the ground, shirtless, without his trousers, without his shoes, like a criminal. And the first question I asked was, what did he do? And they said, it's some investigation about some armed robbery. There was a case that's been ongoing for months, and he's been linked to it. And I'm like, do you realize this person just literally came into town? So how can he be linked to a robbery that took place months ago in Port Harcourt? So it's a very funny situation. Thankfully, we're able to find a way out of that because, like I said, we had our press cards and we're journalists. And with the kind of station that I work with, they literally do not want to have any issues, with you as a journalist here. That was our saving grace. But it was an eye opener for me as well to the realities of what living in River State really is. People literally go out on a daily basis afraid for their very own lives, not because they'll be attacked by armed robbers or by kidnappers or by killers or ritualists, but because the very people who were supposed to protect them would harm them. It was very traumatizing for me and my husband for months. But thankfully we came out of it. But again, like Daniel said, this is just the way it is. This is our reality here.
Superiority complex that comes with wearing the police uniform in Nigeria, and it's a them versus us kind type of thing. Half the time. What do you think is responsible for that superiority complex by the men of the Nigeria police? That demigod feeling. Where do you think it came from? Because these people are supposed to be protecting and serving us. That's their number one mandate.
Mm. Well, Marianne, of course, as you know, military rule in Nigeria was there for a long time. And I think that gave those who were not in military uniform at that point, they gave them that sense of once I become a military officer or once I get into uniform, I'll also be, I'll also impose my will on people. The Nigerian police office or Nigerian police officers have this notion that yes, we're not soldiers, but we're in uniform, and so we can aspire to be like soldiers. The way soldiers behave, we can also aspire to become like that. Soldiers are what police officers look up to. In fact, someone told me once upon a time that every police officer is a soldier that didn't make it into the army. So they go around wearing the police uniform and thinking that they're 10 feet tall, and that uniform and that gun gives them the authority to trample on citizens' rights or to brutalize people without looking back. Marianne, Nigeria is a society that's governed by the uniform, whether it's military uniform, whether it's the Navy, Army, Air Force, police, even back in the day when we had Tinariv in River State. Once Nigerians see anybody in uniform, they do the right thing in court, or the person in uniform ensures that they do what they are meant to do. So it's a uniform driven fear in most Nigerians. Even when you see somebody from civil defense, Marianne, something in you as a Nigerian tells you to rearrange yourself, to rearrange your stance, to to fall into line, as it were. I'll give you a classic example, Marianne. If you're in a serious traffic gridlock in Port Harcourt, anywhere in Nigeria for that matter, and you see someone with a uniform come down, brandish a whip, what happens? Immediately, that chaos clears. People automatically start doing the right thing. Why? We are afraid of the uniform. We are afraid of the man wearing the khaki or wearing the navy white or wearing the navy blue or the police black. We are afraid of uniform because it's been internalized in us that the man in uniform has the upper hand. The man in uniform is the king. The man in uniform is God. So you have to, pander, or you have to do his bidding at that point. So it's a uniform-driven society that we live in, Marianne. Hmm. Marianne, I'll tell you why we have that mentality still. I'll tell you why. Because the training that police officers had in the 60s and 70s, that is still the training they have today in 2020. The training modules haven't changed. The training principles haven't changed. It's the same thing. I'll bet you, Marianne, that if you go into the police academy in Nigeria or the police training school module they had 20 years ago, it hasn't changed. So it emanates from a training module that is bent on bending people to their will, not customer service, not community policing, not helping people to see police in the right. So the training hasn't changed, Marianne. Why do you think the psyche will change today?
I haven't personally, I haven't had an experience, but I've heard a lot of people share their experiences of how at some point the police came through for them and helped them out of, such situations that they found themselves in. But I think that generally with the majority of experiences that my friends have been recording over the years, I think it's potentially a fundamental problem. So yes, we have beautiful laws. The Constitution looks really attractive. We're supposed to have these trainings and orientations for the police force or whoever is applying to join the police force. But in reality, we do not see these things actually come to play. So I think it's a fundamental problem as to us as Nigerians, as individuals, how we've known to live, how we've known to govern, how we've known to carry out our duties and responsibilities. So I mean, it's like they say, anointing flows from the head. You know that if the presidency, for instance, gets away with whatever it is that they do, or at the state level, they get away with whatever it is that they do. When you get into your own little corner as a leader, you would also have the potential to get away with whatever you. And if you know that you can get away with whatever you do, why would you want to do right? So I think it's more of a mentality problem we have in Nigeria, and this cuts across every sector in Nigeria. We have literally challenges cut across all sectors, from education to power to security, all of our sectors across Nigeria. And it's the same problem, the same responsibility problem, where we haven't come to a point where we begin to take responsibility for our actions. We begin to do right just because it's the right thing to do. So, for instance, the police force, we know, we've been told countless times that indeed there is some form of orientation for our police officers who want to get recruited into the force. But we do not see these things happen. They come out and tell us beautiful stories of how they've been trained, how they've been, equipped with the right arsenal to carry out their duties professionally. We don't see these things happen. As a matter of fact, I've spoken to some police officers who, in confidence, tell me, look, sometimes they even have to pay for the uniforms they have to wear. And at the end of the day, still have to remit some monies that they make. So it's like a hustle ground where everybody has to come in and then, hustle for your own daily food. It's a very terrible situation right now. So on paper, it's a very beautiful idea. We're told that indeed there is some form of orientation that makes a lot of sense, but in reality, it's not the case. And that is where the problem really lies. It's a great idea, the FSARS, that the police force came up with. It's a fantastic idea. The police force being our friends is also a great idea. But in reality, is that happening? No. So that is the problem.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for having. Sorry, I'm running late. Yeah, just having a little bit of tech issue. But one of the things that I don't know if you take of the question, I had it interrupt. I don't know if you could take that late part of the question again. Uh, okay, so yeah, Yes. So here's what I would say. I think one of the things that people used to count on when it comes is the fact that people have a passion. And can you hear me? Oh dear. Let me make an attempt to switch to my desktop. I need to resolve that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Marianne, welfare is key. A man who is not well taken care of, a man who cannot take care of his family adequately, cannot be in the right frame of mind to do a job. We've all been there, working and not getting paid, or working and getting paid a very paltry amount of money, or working and not getting paid what is due you. It affects your psyche as a normal human being. How do you expect a police officer who has been transferred to a new location and to not have the basics, to not have money to take care of himself? That police officer will not be in the right frame of mind to do his job. He'll be frustrated, he'll be disorganized, he'll be angry, and sadly, Marianne, it's the when that doesn't happen, Marianne, it has an aftershock effect on everybody else. So they see you driving a car, they see you living well or seemingly living well, and the anger exacerbates in them. The anger rises. They're angry at you, angry at society, angry at their bosses, Marianne. So before we talk about reforming and doing things better, let's look at the welfare of the police officers. This cuts across Nigeria, not just police officers, I'm sure. Civil servants in general are poorly enumerated, and the police are part of that problem as well, Marianne. A man who is hungry, you give that kind of man a gun and tell him to stand in the middle of the road under the scorching sun, that man is a ticking time bomb. Okay, I'll start with the investigative piece, Marianne. So this was in 2014, I believe, if I'm correct. Um, I was at a friend's place, and he told me about his cousin who was taken away by men of the SARS operatives to a location in Port Harcourt. And sorry, my daughter is trying to distract me. Sorry, Marianne. Yeah. Okay, so he told me about his cousin who was in the SARS detention center in Port Harcourt, and he's been there for about 6 months, and they were trying to raise money to get him out. And so eventually the family raised enough money, I think it was about 200,000 they raised, and they got him out. So I was privileged to be there when he came out, and I asked him, I said, hey, his name was Chidi. I said, Chidi, do you want to talk to me about your experiences with the SARS guys in Port Harcourt? And he was very happy to talk to me about it, Marianne. And the kind of things he said to me, he talked to me about why he was arrested. And by the way, he was just walking on the streets of Omok when the SARS men came and pulled up and arrested him, put him in their van, and that was it. There was no charge, nothing. He was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and which could happen to anybody. Now, he said to me that, look, he was taken into custody. He was there for 6 months. He was tortured. He was beaten with sticks and planks on his, he had injuries on his leg, on his arms. There was no adequate feeding. If you want to do a number one, you do it there where you are. A number two, you do it there where you are. Your family, if the family eventually finds out that you're there, they have to cater for your feeding. They have to find a way to bring food in for you, find a way to ensure that then there's nothing you can do, Marianne. In fact, he told me about a few guys that were killed while he was in detention there, because the SARS operatives felt that, look, No money was coming forth from his family members, so there's no point keeping them there. They were taking up space. So they took them out and shot them. In fact, he said he was about to be shot, but for some strange reason, he was spared. And he named names. He mentioned names, Marianne. His story was such a very clear, vivid picture of what was going on in the SARS office in Port Harcourt. He detailed daily occurrences. He detailed deaths. He detailed how they were shot, how they were how a hole was dug and they were buried there and then in a bush out behind the SARS building. He talked about so many things, Marianne, but that story for me and for many people painted a picture of what goes on inside the detention center. If you find yourself in there, Marianne, it's either you make it out alive because your family members pay some money, or nothing happens to you and you die and nobody hears from you. You know, so it's a very sad picture he painted, Marianne. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm distracted a bit. Sorry about that, Marianne. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, and that's it. So for them, it's just another day in the office. For them, it's just about killing people if they can. And there's something about SaaS operators, Marianne and Femi. I'm sure Gabriel will attest to this as well. It's almost as if there's a boosting system within their ranks where you get plaudits for the number of people you've killed, or you get some kind of you go on an ego trip based on how many deaths, how many kills you've added to your belt. It's a kind of ego thing for them. It's beyond policing. It's more or less like us versus them, and the more heads you take, the higher you are up in terms of the SaaS hierarchy. So something about the men of the SaaS operators and how they operate is this commando style thing about them, where they just jump into their vehicles, they have bandanas on their heads, not wearing uniforms. Just something about them that just smacks of ego and smacks of false bravado and just oppression in its direst form.
I'm going to come back to you to tell us your personal experience and how they broke into your house. But let's get Femi into the conversation. Femi, as journalists who see here, reports these, stories and experiences, that sends cold shivers through our spines every other day. There's been protests. I mean, in Lagos today, we had celebrities run town. We had Fowles and some other people, joining the protest. I mean, on my way back from work, I saw like a crazy crowd, on their way back from the protest. Do you think that scrapping SARS in itself would be a solution to the problem, or reforming the police in itself? What do you think we need to do, or the management of the police force? Because we have the Police Service Commission, which has oversight functions over the Nigerian police. Where do you stand on this? Do you think we should reform? Do you think we should scrap and just have proper leveling in the police force? Or maybe we need to reform SARS in itself?
Okay, so this is a question I would battle with all week long, and I have battled with it, even hosting and asking people whether pretty much SARS should be reformed or scrapped. Now, it appears the poster child for anything bad in the police has been labeled as FSARS. Remember, FSARS was not even their name some weeks back, some months back. That was a name that did come up after supposed reform. A reform was put up with regards when the vice president did get involved some time back. I don't know if you recall that. So that tells you that a reform had taken place before, but it looked like even with those reforms on paper, every other person who was in the elite did get to hear what those reforms were, except the people who are directly involved in what it takes to do their day-to-day job. Now, it means if you're doing reformation, it means you're looking for another brand name. This time, maybe we call them, the guys who are after Yahoo Boys. We always have the street version. Yeah, we always have the street version for the names that we call them. Initially, they were branded as the unit of the police force that goes after cybercrime, except the fact that these guys are not trained to look into cybercrime. They do not know when transactions are done correctly from incorrectly. Rather, they depend on profiling of people who look like they should not look like when they look like the people that they are arresting. In other words, their social profiling looks like if you have dreadlocks, I pick you up because you have dreadlocks like I do, and that fits the profile. So it brings forward the challenge. What exactly do you mean when you say reform? If we've spoken so much about reformation before, and we ended up with a branded name, and now this new reform looks like we have a new 10-step guide on how to be a good FSAS officer released by the Inspector General of Police, a step by step on what to do, what not to do, makes it interesting. Remember, a day after those reformation or those guidelines for how you should carry out your operation as an FSAS officer was released, there were still police officers attached to the same unit that traveled from Ogun State to Lagos State to Ikeja Computer Village to make an attempt to arrest. And here we are, the people in the computer village in Ikeja were there to hold them back from arresting those set of individuals because they were saying, but you guys are told, you were told not to come out. Don't leave your place. Yeah, and I'm also very concerned, and it's still with the idea of reformation. Remember during the lockdown in Oyo State, there was a woman who appeared to be going out who was slapped. I mean, it's often believed that FSAS guys go after the masculine gender. But there was a woman that was slapped in Oyo State in Ibadan. And there was another state where a woman was pregnant and she compelled her husband to go out. Let's go to the pharmacy and get some stuff. And then she was pleading with the FSAS guy who seems to have accosted her husband to say, I was the one who said, let's leave you home. I need some medication due to my state in order for to be good. And as always, the pharmacist will look twice before they issue drugs to somebody who is not pregnant. And literally, the man had to intervene, take his wife, and he was arrested for going out. There are 1,001 examples where one would wonder the logic behind this. But of all the things that surprises me the most, would have to be, it used to be believed that jungle justice was a mob action. Extrajudicial killing was a mob action. But now, what we're seeing is men and women, let me go all the way now and say men and women of these set of operations don't understand what it means to have a social interface with citizens of a country that is guided by laws. So when you do reform, when you preach reforms to men who are inclined, who are DNA'd, let me use the word, along a set of orientation different about, it's like saying your boss tells you with one corner eye, see, don't tell that Vista I'm not around. While his lips are moving, are saying, oh, this is a place we're always welcome with. But then the corners of his eyes tells you, don't let that person in. They are, to them, they may be listening to two sets of instructions.
About recruiting, how these guys are recruited, what they should know to do, as part of their duties. You had a close shave with these guys. They broke into your house. They weren't sure of the building they were going into, and unfortunately, it was your house they got into. Explain to me how that happened, and tell me again in that same breath what should be considered in recruiting these police officers, because they're policemen first before they become members of any unit whatsoever. So, tell us that experience and what should be considered when we are recruiting these men into.
Okay, so this was in 2013 March precisely. I've just been married for about a year. My wife was pregnant then with my first child. Then I was on the morning crossfire, as you know, Marianne, and usually my working hours were between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. So I finished work by 10 a.m. and by 10:30 most days I'm home, 10:30 in the morning. So on this particular day, I got home at about 11 a.m. Decided to take a nap, for a few minutes because my wife wasn't home. Then my wife was at work. So I tried to sleep, but for some reason, Marianne, I couldn't sleep. So I decided to just drive down to the office, which is about 8 minutes away from my house. Drive back to the office and, as my normal way, come and play with you guys, have some fun with you guys and stuff. So I left my house, and on the way, I realized that I left my phone at home. Now, I was of two minds: go back for the phone or just carry on to the office. I said, look, you know what? If a call comes, I'll return the call later. So I left the phone at home and went back to the office. 30 minutes later, a colleague of ours, Ben, comes to me and says, hey, your wife has been trying to reach you. She couldn't reach you, so she called me. Apparently, the security man had called her that some guys came into our compound and broke into our flat and left with some items, left with our TV, our generator, a laptop, and a few other things. I was stunned, I was alarmed, so I went to the nearest police station to make a report. And the DPO was shocked because he said to me, I didn't send anybody to make any arrest. No, my men have been here all day. They've not gone for any operation, so I don't know who these guys are. But he sent a couple of policemen to go with me to the house. Marianne, the sight I saw was just terrible. The door was broken. All of our property turned inside out. The whole house was ransacked. My TV was gone. My generator was gone. My laptop was gone. The whole house was in a state of chaos. Went back to the police station and told the DPO what we found. He started calling different formations, and eventually the men, SARS, or I think they were called SOS or something, or SARS, one of them, said yes, they were the ones who came to my house for that operation, Marianne. Apparently, my next door neighbor was somebody they've been tracking for some time now. He was involved in kidnapping and robbery, and for some strange reason, they mistook his house for my house. Now, Maria, here's the scary part of it. When they realized their mistake, what they said was, oh, Oga, no vex. Oga, this vex really the vex. If say we see you, now another thing for the talk, because our Oga said no, we can't kill you. Now kill for can't kill the person we will see for house that day. Maria, so just 5 minutes. That's right. Marianne, so just 5 minutes saved my life. That 5 minutes that I went to the office, that 5 minutes, because after I left my house, 5 minutes later, they came to the compound. So that 5 minutes literally saved my life. Now, Marianne, here's the funny thing. They went with my TV, went with my generator, went with my laptop, and even some money that my wife had in the house, because my wife had done a contribution just the previous day, some kind of mutual funds, yes. Yes, so 500,000 naira was in the house that day. I was meant to put it in the bank the next day, but I forgot for some reason. I was feeling sleepy. I didn't do it. They took that money as well, Marianne, 500,000 plus my belongings. So at the end of the day, they had to refund, obviously, the money. And my father-in-law said to me, he said, Daniel, don't go to press with this. Remember, Marianne, I didn't go on air with this issue. I never called anybody out. I didn't make a case. I didn't go to court or anything, because my father-in-law advised me, said, if you make a case out of this, you'll become a target for the police in future. So he said, you know what? You're alive. Just forget about the whole thing. But Marianne, imagine if